Hey, welcome to episode 87 of the PoddyC, where we're all up several hours after we were yesterday for MDI, but still somehow all pretty tired. I got my, I guess, yearly delivery of like crates of
Bosh
from Liquid, so those are keeping me
Dude,
keeping me fueled
everyone
here.
in our guild has been talking about, like, I was playing Battlefield with Lip the other day. He goes, dude, you get your crates? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, I got like a pallet of Bosh at my house. And apparently there was like a post going around like, hey, if you guys want Bosh, or just post it here and we'll send it to you. And I just completely missed it.
Wait, hold on. I didn't get any.
very...
We're not sponsored by them. We can't. We got to blur this out.
Oh, that's true. That's
Ron,
true.
you
Yeah,
got to do your job.
Unknown energy drink manufacturer.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, I feel left out.
Oh, did you not like sign up for it either, Max? No. Did you not get any?
I don't. So one of my toxic traits is I never know when anything's going on ever. So like I always miss, like there's like a WoW content creator Discord, and like they always have these announcements in there that are very important to sign up for, like getting alpha access and getting just all this stuff. And it's just always, hopefully someone reaches out to me personally and be like, hey, did you see this? Because if they don't, I'll never see it. And that's the case with the monster thing too.
Well, the problem is like all these channels, it's like 15 completely irrelevant pings, and then one ping that's like, hey, by the way, if you want beta access, here's the ping, right?
Yeah, hey, if you want
that.
A free car, make sure to sign up for this. And it just looks the same as just a bunch of random nonsense.
Yeah. I always do, like, I read all those, but man, sometimes what'll happen for me is like, I'll realize a server is just not got any of those, and then just mute the whole server. And then if anything interesting is in there ever, it's over. Okay, so last podcast, we looked back fondly, mostly, I'd say, but, with some reservations on War Within. This podcast, something that we can start doing really is looking forward as Midnight has moved into beta, and we get to see a little bit more of exactly how they want to implement some of these things. So in addition to, I think really the big thing that sort of jumps to mind for me is with the removal of add-ons, what now can they do that they couldn't before? Has this changed the dungeon design? Has this changed raid boss design? And there was a little oopsie during testing where they accidentally let us test the last boss when that's not something that's happened since Sylvanas. Sylvanas was the last time an end boss actually got tested.
That's like pretty major. Like the whole everything about the last boss is under lock and key. Obviously, there's a dungeon journal, but the visuals matter so much. Like there's so many different ways you could interpret that like first mechanic you saw, right? And then that they just showed it. That's a pretty insane, honestly, for the race. I guess it matters less in a raid like this where there's a heroic week, right? Because you see the boss on heroic, and then you have an entire week to kind of strategize it. And on like a normal simultaneous release, you're kind of like seeing it on heroic, and also like you have no time to like really super diagnose how you want to handle this. So it's pretty just really interesting that it happened in general.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting as well because there's been the speculation of like, can they do a mechanic that a weak aura would have trivialized, but is going to be fun and hard to execute without a weak aura? And it looks like there is a swing at that here on the last boss. I'm curious what your guys' takes are on whether it accomplishes it. So this is it's like a memory game mechanic on the last boss where the boss is going to show you 4 symbols in a different order each time. And of course, no add-ons can read anything about this. And then it will assign those symbols to players. And then the boss will do a laser beam, and that laser beam has to hit the symbols in the order that she showed you with the memory game. And on Mythic, there's like some Star Augur shit where you have to, multiple people are going to get the symbols and have to like collide, but also in the right order. And that seems absolutely crazy. But it's interesting because when I think about this mechanic, it's like, I'm not sure that I guess the main thing that weak auras and add-ons would do is maybe there'd be some cringe macro shit that you'd do with this mechanic if those existed. I will say the heroic version, like if the heroic version only made it to Mythic, I do think there'd probably be some cringe. One person in your raid has to have all the world markers bound, and you like place the different world markers, but in the same locations to indicate positions 1, 2, 3, and 4. That was like what seemed like to me to be the best way to handle this. But with the Mythic version having people colliding, maybe that doesn't work. But I'm a little bit worried that might be a way that a lot of these do best get solved without weak auras, is with like at cursor world marker drops, and then one responsible person, which in my raid is going to have to be me, that does all that. And that sounds, I've already had to do that a little bit on like Ansurek and Dimensius with like updating the world markers, especially Ansurek, dude, updating world markers every time we get to the last phase. And that sounds annoying. So hopefully there's a reason that doesn't work for doing this sort of mechanic.
I'm not surprised at seeing. Well, okay, I also I was really unhappy to see this mechanic. I'll tell you why. Because I've been telling people, and I still very much believe I'm right about this. When they're like, I saw a take. I don't know if I mentioned it on this podcast, but I saw a take that was like, people, we're gonna have to get used to the new WoW rating, which is now going to be very puzzle based and all of these random things. And it's like, that's just so wrong. Like, you're just gonna get a normal WoW raid with normal WoW mechanics, right? And that's what this is. But it looks so puzzly that it's just like those people are like, I knew it. And it's like, no.
I said that. I said that last week. Last week, I was like, oh, yeah, they definitely want to show off something new with what they have design-wise and mechanic-wise because they're able to do this now. Like, they want to be able to be like, oh, now that we have no weak auras and add-ons to solve these problems, we can design these types of encounters. Like, I swear they had
that with this mechanic, though, right? Because this mechanic
not this specific
requires
mechanic,
zero. Weak auras wouldn't do fucking anything for this mechanic. It literally just shows you what order you're supposed to be in. You see the order around you, and you have to just get yourself in a line with those things. Weak auras wouldn't do fucking anything. It would tell you to go in an order which you already know by looking at the boss, right? Like this is like weak auras. Would you have found a weak aura to make this mechanic go from 95% success chance to 98 with some binary go to this marker reminder or whatever? Yes. But that's what you would do for literally every WoW mechanic ever, right? But that's not the example of things where like weak auras are doing something that would otherwise not be possible.
Well, it would remove the memorization part, right?
If it gave you a buff that was readable by weak auras, yes. My question is like, what if this was a private aura, right? If getting one of these was a private aura, like I feel like
you have like 4 different macros, like say like if you get.
Yeah, but that's so
4 different macros is going to be worse than just having
worse than
remember.
Just doing it natty. Exactly.
We're not talking about rocket surgery here. This is like kindergarten blocks, right? You have to remember 4 different ones. That's
correct.
What if it goes really fast and it's crazy on Mythic and it's like there's...
You already know it's not going to be that because the added difficulty is the 2 people colliding together, which is the increase, right? They wouldn't like compound different things. That's what you would do with like, oh, this thing is solved by weak auras. That's when they would have had to ramp it up and do like, oh, it's faster and there's more and you have to collide or whatever. But without the weak auras, all you need to do is add 1 level of difficulty.
Well, but that's their logic, right? Like that's what Ion would say. He would say, because you guys have weak auras, we're gonna have to make it like this and make it like less reaction time. You have to memorize it really quick, and it's gonna rapid fire, and you have to do it multiple times.
Yeah, most mechanics that weak auras helped you do, they had to make them slightly harder because of that. And without weak auras, they would either give you more time, make it less complex, or in other ways, just make it more consistent. That's true of literally every mechanic.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully this is I hope that this will be fun to play. I hope there's not some cringe solve. I really just hope that we don't have any world marker at cursor.
I mean, I highly doubt it. Like, I mean, I feel like you're going to have like points on the boss, right? So there's four like letters or different symbols or whatever, right? And you could do a north, south, east, west of the boss, and it always starts in the south or something. And then you just know the first one always goes directly south, the second one goes east, the one you go top, you go to the left, you go west, whatever. And then it's just like it's going to be calling it out in comms. I think you remember one of those teams doing that thing, just called it out like, okay, it's star X triangle this, and then everyone else is looking around and being like, okay, I have to put myself in that position. That is like kind of the natty solve. If there's anything more complex than that, it's most likely going to fall under the guise of you're doing too much for such a little gain, to where it's just like everyone kind of they did 2 pulls on this boss, right? And you got how it worked, right? Like that's the point. So not super worried about that. I want to bring up something else about this boss that I found was kind of interesting. We were testing this, and Echo was testing this at the time. I talked about this with Miras over the weekend, and neither one of our guilds knew if we were allowed to go do this, because it's like clearly not intended that you are doing the last boss. Also, some race history. a guild was banned from PTR back in the day, more than 10 years ago, Blood Legion and Siege of Orgrimmar, because I believe it was much more significant. It was, I think they left the raid up on normal over the weekend, but heroic was able to be tested. And Blood Legion basically spent like an entire day just like testing heroic bosses. Keep in mind, heroic back then is mythic now. So they were just like fucking slamming mythic progression on PTR, and they banned them for that. So we actually asked Blizzard, like, hey, so these other guilds did this. Obviously, they're not going to ban them, but we were scared of getting banned. So like, how do you know what is okay to do and what is okay? Just hypothetically, like we go do this. And their response, and I don't think I'm allowed to directly quote them, but it was basically along the lines of like, it's easy for us to tell when you're confused versus doing something on purpose. And I just found that so interesting. Are they saying that these teams that did this were confused? Like they were like, oh, whoops, this must be P2 of Valorland or whatever, you know?
I
Like,
was 100% confused. So I ran into that boss. I'm like, wait, are we just doing trash right now? Like, why is Lure right here? Like, I thought it was just like one of those, like, oh, you know, you have to like fight him and kill the trash, and Lure runs away and you gotta chase after him or some shit like that.
okay, so barring Dorki specifically being confused, let's say like, so basically they're saying, hey, if you would have went to this boss and tested it on purpose, that wouldn't have been okay. But it's like, okay, well, that's what other teams did. So I'm a little confused on that. I think more than anything, they just, if I'm reading it right, they didn't want to give us an answer that we could refer to in the future and in some way allude to the fact that they said it was okay to do this thing. So it was like a very lawyery answer.
Right. They don't want to like establish any precedent that you can point back to.
Yeah. But I just thought that was a funny interaction. Little lore drop.
Yeah. I mean, it is both confusing where it's like, oh, are we supposed to be here? And then also the case that like, as soon as you think you might be actually testing the last boss, of course, everybody's going to do it, right? Like, unless you know you're getting banned for it, which, yeah, I'm not super surprised that. I feel like it's one of those things as well where Blizzard would have a hard time banning for it when the process of doing it is so easy and it doesn't require any like super malicious thing. That's always the thing that jumps out to me is like, how many steps do you have to jump through to do this exploit, right? And if the answer is like, a lot of normal people are going to do this by accident, or Dorki will do this by mistake, then that is going to be really hard for Blizzard to like ban for, compared to, oh, you had to do this 3-step process to, activate the last boss on testing that you're not supposed to be able to access.
Yeah,
I mean, am I crazy? Banning for PTR testing where you have to pay to get in is like,
they ban you on
shit
PTR.
Ever.
Yeah, they just like they say you can't PTR again, right? Like,
yeah,
that sounds so fucking ridiculous to me.
I mean that's the only thing. That's just what happened in the past. So Blood Legion did that, and then for a while they were not allowed to PTR test.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they.
If there was an exploit where you could like,
that's just ridiculous.
Zone in and out of a delve and reset difficulty to mythic and heroic in like also zoning into Ice Crown Citadel at the same time, and by doing all of that, you could test the last boss of the next tier on mythic. And a guild did that. I think. If you thought you weren't going to get banned for that, you'd be crazy, right? Like,
yeah. Not to mention, none of the like guilds testing this stuff to understand the bosses on a deep level are ever going to. So to do this, you needed to kill the boss on heroic within the first 28 minutes of the testing thing. But like, no one's going to do that. You don't kill these bosses until you're on the last pull of the hour or something, if you want to, even for fun, because you're just there for information finding, and it's a huge waste of time to kill the boss and go around. So the only people who are actually going to kill the boss are guilds that are just there for fun, or just like fucking around because they have nothing else to do. And those are the teams that ended up just being on the boss, which was probably why it turned out that way.
Yeah. Okay, the other side of things. So I guess on the raid design side of things, I think even Max, the way you were saying, like, oh, this isn't actually like the new puzzle thing. If we do give them the full benefit of like, okay, maybe they're now going to do this mechanic with more thinking time because there's not going to be any add-on doing anything, like that does sound pretty fun to me. That does sound like it could be opening up some space for not necessarily a new mechanic that's never seen before, but like, I don't know, something that'll be fun to play that they couldn't really do before.
Thing the whole time, right? Like they've even alluded to. I remember the thing that stuck out to me the most, and I know we've mentioned this on the podcast, was not even someone currently at Blizzard. It was someone who used to work at Blizzard that said, I briefly worked in encounter design, and it was a topic that fucking came up. Like, when designing things, oh, is this going to be solved by a weak aura? And not having that there would open up your design space. So obviously all of us are looking towards that, but I remember the last time you brought this up, if you were a skeptic, right, and we're saying, oh, well, another big positive of all this stuff being nuked is you're going to get better boss fights. I think a very natural and valid response to that is like, I'll believe it when I see it, right? Because you're just not going to feel that until it's actually true. So, but it does, I mean, it is a unique looking mechanic. Like, have you ever, like, even if you're just a very, very like passerby listener to all this stuff, you're not super involved with it, and you're like, okay, well, they might get like cool raid design. And then you see a picture of this, the last boss of the next tier, and you're like, I actually haven't seen something like that. Like, that looks pretty unique. Like, they've done the runes before with multiple bosses, Odin, Halander's PTR, multiple other bosses where you have to like line up things based on like the shape or whatever you're given. But the whole like they need to be frontaled in this order, that has definitely never been a WoW mechanic before. So it's cool seeing new unique things happening when they're also doing all of this.
Yeah. It does mirror also a little bit the dungeon side of things, where they've basically been like, yeah, you know, we're killing all these interrupts, we're killing your ability to track your group mates' interrupts, but what you're going to get instead is dungeons that don't, you know, require as thorough of a, you know, interrupt / CC chain. Dorki, have you tested M+ on beta to verify whether we're in that direction?
I've seen a lot of complaint going around on YouTube. You know, people have been making feedback videos, Reddit, and Twitter, etc. So the first few days of testing beta, they were definitely not in that direction. In fact, so much so that it kind of caused a lot of people to doom even harder. Like, you know,
it was
added
basically like the same
fire.
dungeons, but now you can't see your group's
Yeah,
kicks,
it's
right?
like,
But
bro,
like, you still
how
need
is
them.
Ion just gonna come out and say this and say how like, oh, we're gonna have to trim down the amount of cognitive overload in these dungeons and, you know, the amount of casters, etc. And we're just doing these exact same dungeons with not only bolt slop, but it also still has an insane amount of group damage. In fact, there's like a bunch of damage with that you can't even avoid anymore. So they've kind of gone with the design that we saw in Ecodome at like some of this season. Like Gambit has some of that too, where you have like the overseer, or not overseers, but officers that'll just do sword toss and you can't see any cast bar. Like, it just happens. There's like the leaps from the far stalkers where they'll just like jump on random players. There's no like indicator of like when that'll happen and why. Or like the sentinels will just post out damage. Or like, you know, like Fellowship kind of has that too, right? Like where you just like eat random throws. Like there's no cast bar, no nothing. You don't even know who's being targeted.
And random like poison debuffs. Yeah.
So they've been going with that direction, which like kind of makes sense, right? It's kind of like the monkey paw curls type shit where the players complain about like, oh, there's too many casts we have to worry about and stop and kick. So Blizzard's answer is like, well, if you don't want to have to, yeah, I mean, well, now you can't even see the cast anymore. Which, I mean, like, I think is probably going to be okay. Like, it'll probably be interesting. It'll depend on tuning, obviously.
It's going to limit pull size so much, I think. Like that, like I think it's going to have a positive interaction for a lot of people doing keys at what we like people would call the civilian level, right? Like not even like the weekly keys, but like below that. But even weekly keys, I think, is going to be less coggy load, right? But I think high level keys, no Omni CD, you're basically going to push yourself to your limit anyway. Instead of having a bunch of casts you can stop, the whole like everything's just going off. Like, yeah, you don't have to worry about tracking kicks as much, but you're just going to be getting fucked.
Like, yeah, and the worst part is like you don't even know why. That. Like when I was doing beta dungeons, right? Because like obviously I don't know what these dungeons are. Like they completely changed all of them. I have like no idea why we're dying. It's like my team is just randomly dying. I'm so confused what's going on, and it's like because there's no cast bar or anything happening. Like normally you would see like, oh, icy devastation. Like, oh, that's like some bad shit happening. Like we have to kick or stop that. But like it's just like things are just happening, and people are just randomly dropping dead. It's like you don't even know what's happening half the time, which is like kind of a problem. But I think a large part of that is just because there's too much of it. There's too much of it, and they haven't removed the bolt slop and all the casts that they've mentioned. Although I will say,
I love bolt slop. Yeah. I love bolt slop.
Yeah, bolt slop is such a fitting word. Like ever since I've seen that word, I'm like, dude, this is like such a.
Yeah, dude,
it's been being used all over the place too.
Yeah, they're calling all the like places like Chipotle and stuff. They call them slop bowls. Like a Kava and Chipotle, dude, and yeah.
After this potty, I'm 100% slamming a slop bowl. Oh my god.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it.
But yeah, so on Thursday or like one of the later days, they actually slammed an emergency hotfix where they nerfed the hell out of some of these dungeons. So Seat and Pit of Sarons in particular were heavily slammed, which I mean, it's a really good change. They did remove a lot of the sloppage.
So it
But
wasn't even a weekly like beta update. It was like they
yeah,
hot fixed beta.
yeah. I mean,
That's really interesting.
they pushed a lot of hotfixes that we don't see. Like they don't make any blue posts about. Like Bloody Kid, for example. When I was playing Bloody Kid on the first day, they said they nerfed Blood Boil by 12%. Instead, they actually buffed it by 120%. So
Oopsie.
when I was playing Bloody Kid on the first day, I was like doing an absurd amount of damage. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, is Bloody Kid just like this overtuned? How did he miss the tuning by this much? Which was amazing, by the way. Like, I wish that's how tank damage was. It would be like so much fun playing. I had so much fun playing that Bloody Kid on the first day just because I was popping off. But it turns out that that was like a error on their part, and that immediately got fixed. I was kind of like something that wasn't even mentioned. So, and like the nameplate fix too, they pushed out a stacking nameplate fix because like we talk about nameplates later, but the nameplates are absolutely atrocious right now. And yeah, so they've just been pushing out a lot of changes under the hood, and things have actually been getting better. So I don't want to make it sound like it's only been dog shit, and I'm sure it'll change over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I saw some of the changes. Well, I saw like in Algathar, they killed a bunch of the caster. Like they just took a bunch of casters out of the like left area in that dungeon. But then they put in like more battle axes, which those mobs don't do any cast or anything like that, but they just beat the hell out of your tank, which worries me a little bit. It worries me a little bit because it seems like if we move to a world where they just cut down on the number of mobs that do casts and instead increase the number of mobs that just do unavoidable group damage or crazy unavoidable tank damage, like dungeons are going to get easier to be a DPS in, but harder to be a tank or a healer in, which I think is the wrong direction if they go that way. So that worries me a little bit, but I do think it's good that the number of kicks, like the number of kicks just has to go down by a huge amount if they want to make it so that none of our healers have interrupts, and also we can't see any of our groups interrupts, which they're trying to do, right?
I think they're very scared of. I think there's two things coming out ahead with each other. They know with these add-on changes, they need to reduce the amount of things going on, obviously, but they are also still very hesitant to allow you to just pull everything.
Right.
I think they still want what a WoW dungeon pull looks like to be managed. And that the way they're doing that is like now if you're a top. So I think they're going to accomplish this again for like the lower level, mid-level player. I think that is actually going to happen. But I think for the top level player, it's going to be very frustrating because at least when you pulled all this stuff before, you had the ability to outplay and manage it, and now they're just going to do the thing. And that is going to make your pull smaller by default once you start infinitely scaling.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they didn't go with that philosophy because, like, I do enjoy having to do. I mean, like, for the longest time in WoW, it's been all right. Just try to go as fast as you can, pull as big as you can, right? Because that's always been a fun part of WoW, even when you go as far back as like fucking good old classic. But yeah, I mean, I actually wished they would limit your pull size more by how much of a tank can handle because I feel like that's always been the best approach, especially for
because like
pugs.
that scales so crazy with player skill where it's like man, a good tank could probably pull like 4 times as much as a bad tank if you make that.
Yeah,
And
no,
they're
I mean,
already worried about tank skill.
but the problem
right?
is like the opposite is what happened in Dragonflight, where the tanks were so powerful and so immortal that they were just pulling random shit and they had no idea why they were doing it, and so it led to the entire group dying, right? Like I've seen so many complaints during Dragonflight where people were like, these dumbass tanks would just pull 5 packs where they could just like live forever, and everyone was just dying to bolt and dying to like AoE rot damage. So it just I think it just creates a more natural progression where the tank is in charge of what they pull, because like if the tank is pulling all these mobs and they're not being threatened by it, they don't have that feedback of like, I'm pulling too much, I shouldn't be doing this, except for like the moments where they're being yelled at by their 4 other teammates saying like, stop pulling this shit.
I think what Blizzard is terrified of is, have you guys ever heard of stories where like there'll be some new like MDI route and like some viewer watched it over the weekend and they zone into a +5 and they're like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna pull fucking everything. And then like they wipe and then everyone leaves and then you hear about it from one of the people. They're like, dude, this happened in my dungeon earlier and it was crazy. I think they don't want the average pull size to be bigger because that is like Blizzard's worst nightmare. That's a one-off thing you hear for a story from a friend right now. But if that's like what happened when you zoned into dungeons and people were afraid of it happening, that is why they don't like. I don't even know if they really care. It may seem this way, but I don't know how much they care about high key players pulling everything in the world. I just think what they really care about is like the dungeon experience for the average person zoning into it 10 or a 12 or below that. And they're terrified of that being like pulling everything and that being like going from top down, basically.
I would
Yeah,
imagine it's probably a balancing worry for them too, where they're like, because they're never able to balance uncapped AoE properly. Is something I've noticed over these years, which is probably why they try to dial it back.
it's like impossible to have there be a like that phenomenon where people get mad at the tank for pulling too much, and also where people get mad at the tanks for pulling too little, right? Like if you fire up LFG and you are a tank there, and you just pull normal, it's 50-50 whether you're going to get yelled at for pulling too much or pulling too little. If normal, depending on what you define normal as, right? Like if you just do like a 1.5 pull, 2 pull at a time thing, right? Like there will be some people you queue into that hate you for pulling too little, some people for too much, right? And like I think it's basically impossible for Blizzard to land in a place where everybody's happy there, but they definitely want to err on the side of tanks pulling, one pack at a time being sort of the default way to do the dungeon. My worry is just depending on how they try and stop us from doing more, we, instead of there being like a high risk, high reward, or even high risk, medium reward strategy, it's just like very high risk and very low reward for going, a little big. And that would be a shame if we were there. And also, I think just like if the way they accomplish it is by just making a regular pull almost kill your tank, that also has the problem of making nobody play tank in the game, which, combined with tanks doing no damage, which again, because the problem is if you move it in the other direction, then the good tanks are going to be pulling way more than than the average player is comfortable pulling at once in their keys, and then they get complaints about it. So yeah, I don't know. Tough
I
problem
feel like
to
that's
solve
just
for
a
sure.
problem like that's just an unsolvable problem where it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I just feel like it's best if the tank was more in control of what they pulled or what they deemed they could handle. Because I mean, it's just like the best of the worst
the best of
situation,
like a few
basically.
tough options. I think, increasing the agency and power of the tanks as well is, if you do that, then hopefully, like, I guess the problem is, increasing the importance of the tank also increases the pressure on the tank players, right? So, like, if the top 5% of tanks are having a great time with it, but it becomes less approachable to start playing tank, then that can be a problem. But I don't know. It's very hard to make tanking beginner friendly and also, highly
Fun to
skill
play.
expressive at the same time, right? Like those are in a lot of ways conflicting goals. So yeah.
I mean, I don't know if any game has really ever solved that problem of tanks. It's just kind of like the problem of tank forever.
Yeah, I think you can, like, tanking is inherently, there's always a popularity gap between how good tanks are and how many people play them, right? Like, even if you go into like League, you ever played like a League in-house with your friends or an Overwatch in-house with your friends, and it's like you really want one or two tanks on your team depending on the meta, and often nobody wants to play it, right? And you just are there with like 5 people all playing non-tank characters, and your team's worse for it, but nobody wants to do it. So very hard problem to solve for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we mentioned as well the nameplate situation. How's that been going?
Dude. I will say the first week of beta, things are definitely terrible. I mean, starting with like the nameplates, the unit frames, and just overall clarity on things. I mean, I will say the most of like the base HUD is like largely there, especially if you're using add-ons, because there have been a lot of LVUI replacements that have come out. There's been like unhalted unit frames. That's one of them. There's Nef UI. A lot of these frames, they moved away from using OUF and they're just like sort of recreating their own from scratch. And it's actually been, I want to say like mostly there. I want to say like 80 to 90% of the way there. It has most of what I already use from my Yuan retail, it's really just like the nameplates and the unit frames that are really bad at the moment.
Yeah, basically the best way I can describe it is if you're coming back to this game, every add-on and like things you've been able to do with your UI, it's all there except for weak auras. There's a few other things, but like largely that like 99% covers everything. But everything that you've used before is still there. It's just transported back in time to like the year 2007. It's just like
I wouldn't go that far back.
It's really fucking bad compared to what it used to be, but it's mostly still there. That being said, though, both the in-game stuff and these little UI things you're seeing are going to be 10 times better in 2 months. Like they're literally being remade from scratch. Like one, basically, Ian mentioned this in his post, but also this is just true, where it kind of just depended on how you built your add-ons in the past, like how you wrote your add-ons. Some add-ons could do two completely different things, and one of them was written in like super complicated ways that gave it more functionality, but that is literally just not how add-ons are written now, which is why things like LVY and like weak auras are just like, we're literally not going to even, we could create a bare bones version of this, but we'd have to completely remake it there. But there are some similar add-ons that actually were just written differently. They're actually really easy to translate to like the way add-ons are made now. So it's like less of a roadmap for people. That being said, some people are building fresh right now, and that just simply takes a lot of time from people. So all these things are going to get better. But right now, it's like, I mean, the damage meter is just a steaming pile of shit compared to details. It's like what the standard is just it's missing so much information.
Yeah, I think that like the damage meter, the cooldown manager, like those are largely Blizzard needs to make them work, right? Because add-ons can't do any of those things. So it's just going to be a question of like whether Blizzard gets them good in the next 2 months. All the things where it's like, oh, will the add-on devs be able to make these good in the next 2 months? Those I'm not worried about at all, right? Like anything where they actually have the capacity to still do something, if it doesn't look the way you want it to, it will by the time midnight comes out. Like that's going to be fine. It's more the case, like the damage meter is one where the add-on devs can't help, right? It has to be the Blizzard in-house people.
Okay, hold on. Hot take about the damage meters. Like most people don't even use most of the functionality in damage meters. Like I get that there are some people out there that like actually use damage meters, but like if you are that type of person, chances are you'll probably just look at a log and you'll get much better information than details, because like most of the times details
things
is like terrible for that.
Like buff up time and
buff
stuff like that. But I do think it is good for seeing quickly like death logs.
Deaths, my
death
details
log is a big one
always
that it needs for sure.
DPS, HPS, deaths, and then like when somebody dies, I'm instantly mousing over their death and the death log, and I have like a details plugin that needs to be gives even more information.
I feel like those are the only really important ones, and just like being able to see the breakdown on your damage, like that. Those are the main ones that I would say as feedback. Like being able to see interrupts, it has, but I don't feel like that's important either. That's just like something you use to like blame people. I see all the time people are like, oh well, I have 50 interrupts, and this hunter only has 5 interrupts in this dungeon, or like the spells too. Like it's kind of just like whatever. Just look at a fucking log instead. But
bro, I mean, really, stagger on your damage meter. It's not good.
Yeah. That part's definitely bad. But like basically, again, they just need to fine tune. I mean, like, that's gonna be fixed, right? Like, there's no chance it's gonna go live and it's gonna have stagger showing still. So
I think the chance that it will go live without there being a details deaths replacement is pretty high. Like, I think we might be losing that.
I mean, I agree with that. That we need for sure.
I will miss it again. Like, if that's the biggest casualty of this, it's worth it, right? But like, it's one of a few casualties that I will definitely mourn going into midnight.
Yeah, and I will say this damage meter will probably be way more accurate than anything details or recount, whatever it could ever have. Which I mean, like Ion has already said too. Like it's going to be server side, so because like normally with damage meters, there's always like some variance depending
mainly
on
a range
like
issue usually. Right?
Yeah, like if you're out of range or if
Nexus
you're
a different phase.
Different phase.
Those sorts of things mess things up. Yeah. But the thing that it won't have is like, if you want to estimate Aug's contribution, right? Like that is something that is pretty hard to do, but you can do these different like tricks to try and do it on the math side. And
details never did that accurately.
They never did it accurately, but they got better and better at it. We won't have the power to try and improve the in-game approximation of any of those things.
Well, you just use
I don't think
warcraft
that's
logs at the end
important
of the day.
because I do think that like those are the kind of things that you would just use logs anyways for. So it's not that bad to lose, accurate Aug estimation from details for me. Although I'm sure there are a lot of people who play the game somewhat casually that don't want to look at logs and will be annoyed that one of the game's specs doesn't work on the in-game damage meter that is
But
provided,
I also feel like
so.
these people are no way the ones that are actually looking at your Aug damage. Like these guys are probably just happy playing Aug, be like, oh hey, look, I'm buffing my friends.
Maybe, although if you're playing Aug, and you get kicked from groups because your damage is low, like that happened when Aug first came out, and in a world of like a low information pug that is, doing midway through the raid on normal or something, like if Aug looks like it's shit on the damage meter, it is going to cause some social problems for people playing or trying to invite Augs.
Oh no, Aug has way bigger social problems than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of many big social problems created by Aug evokers, but it's the main one that actually affects the Yuumi enjoyers, right? The low information Aug enjoyers that aren't the high end players that have all these other problems with it.
Yeah, I mean, so I will say one big thing with, or I guess one big takeaway from all this whole addon situation too, is Ion has said explicitly that they're not trying to remove skin ability, customization, or whatever it is. Like it just happens to be collateral damage because like they're trying to specifically remove combat add-ons, and they are working with add-ons and add-on
Does that
developers.
matter though?
Well, it matters a lot because a lot of people are fed a bunch of misinformation about like, because I've seen this live too on my stream. There are just a bunch of people who are like, how do you have all this? Like, haven't they deleted all add-ons, or like, aren't you not supposed to be able to do this anymore? But I mean, Blizzard has kind of explicitly said, or I guess Ion has explicitly said that like they're not trying to remove all of this. Oh, I mean, like we don't have to believe him, right? Like obviously, lying Ion, he is kind of a classic. We all know he's a goddamn liar, but just like according to what he has mentioned, he doesn't want any of this to go away, which I mean makes total sense. So
yeah, well, I think there's
I would imagine by the
different,
end of
like,
the day,
wrong. There's two different wrong POVs that people have, and both of them get disproved when you're watching, a midnight stream. One is that all your customization is going to survive, and the other is that none of it's going to survive, right? And like the actual answer is they're not targeting it, but some of it is going to get hit as collateral damage. So if you go in expecting either of those things to be true, you're going to be like, oh, hang on a second, I was lied to, right? There's still this customization here. Like, oh, there's no way to do this thing that I classify as customization because it relies on using, in-game combat information and logic and stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, some of them is definitely in a gray area, like being able to track if you have dots, it'll change like the nameplate color, like that. That's kind of
or
it's
like
kind of iffy if that's actually
like, do I want to be able to track my buffs without tracking whether I've got Mark of the Wild? Like, yes, I would love to know my buff situation without having to be informed about Mark of the Wild in the middle of my screen, but can't do that. So that's tough.
Yeah.
My only thing was, if you're saying like, okay, well, some of this customization is gone, but at least Blizzard didn't intend for it to be gone. I feel like it doesn't matter if they intended it; it's just whether you can or not.
Yeah.
Right. Like if it's like,
well,
it's like,
no,
okay,
the point is that like it will probably be back over the next few months.
Oh, we're talking about two different things.
Some of it will, right?
Yeah.
Like there some customization that they can give us back, they can, but like there is some stuff that they just can't ever give us without
without doing that. And
yeah.
someone might be like, oh, well, that sucks that's not there. And if the rebuttal to that is, oh, well, they didn't intend for it to be gone, it's like, okay, well, but it is.
Well, I mean, so like an example of this would be like the unit frames, right? Like the unit frames are definitely being worked on. In fact, there's been a blue post where they said it's something that's currently being worked on, where they're trying to allow for more aura filtering and heal prediction, absorbs. Those were some of the big ones for unit frames, and like that is something that they've explicitly said that they would try to give back functionality. Who knows how long that'll take? And some of them are like they clearly don't want like being able to color nameplates
right
based on what type of unit it is, which they would argue that is like competitive advantage.
I mean,
well, I mean, it is.
They can't give us that, or else we're going to use it for. And also in a world where they take away all this weak aura stuff. But if we could still color nameplates, like you'd best believe we're gonna start figuring out a way to use colored nameplates as a memory cue for everything else, right? Where it's like the nameplates are getting dynamically recolored in combat to give us information about which mobs we're supposed to be looking at or whatever. So yeah.
I mean, I would personally love to be able to color nameplates. I think that's like one of the big things that has been taken
Yeah.
away that I feel like probably shouldn't be taken, or it should just be built into the game. Like that would probably be the best solution to it.
Yeah, for me, it's like last name only. Dude, I loved last name only for nameplates where you don't see, Vile Branch Berserker, Vile Branch Warrior, Vile Branch Shaman, and you just see Berserker, Warrior, Shaman. And that to me is a huge, like.
That being said, though,
So
I
sad.
totally get why they don't want that, because it's really important to them that it is exactly a Vile Branch Warrior.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, well, we got to. Man, it sucks in the dungeons because it's like, man, now my screen is going to have 50 extra words that don't mean anything useful that I have to
I
ignore.
think, by the way, they could totally build the nameplate color thing into the game, at least the way most people use it, which is just like a nameplate looks slightly different if a mob is a like mini boss elite bigman, a like uncc'able large guy, a caster guy, and then the third differentiator would be like a little shitty minion rat thing that's like really like not an important mob, but it's just there. I feel like there would be a way to distinctify those. Is that a word?
Yeah,
No shot. That's a
sure
word.
Is now. That's how
That
words get
sounds
made.
Okay,
one.
whatever.
You
Slamming
said-
it. There's
Yeah.
no other way to distinctify. That just sounds wrong.
I think
No,
distinguish might
it's
be
definitely a
the
word.
actual word. you're
Distinguish,
looking
yeah.
for.
No
Not
way to
distinctify.
distinguish. No other way to like. It'd be an easy way to distinguish those mobs from each other. Like I'm just picturing like a mini boss elite just has like a little kind of an epic looking nameplate. It's got a little flair to it, and it'd be so obvious. And that's the same thing as a nameplate color.
I think
right?
Blizzard, they want like, oh, you see this mob as a caster because it's doing an epic, cool cast animation. You see this mob as like,
Yeah.
they want
they could do that too.
they
That's
want
fine.
all of that to be done only by seeing what the mob looks like and what its like cast and abilities look like.
I mean, honestly, if you do that really well, I think that also solves that problem. Unless you're pulling 50 mobs, which again is not their design intent. So
it's another one of those areas where it's like they can just win by doing all the things they've said they want to do to make it so we don't need the add-on to do this, right? But like,
yeah,
it would be much easier for them to just make an in-game version of that. Same with the last name only thing, right? Like I get annoyed by pulls in dungeons where it's like there are 10 enemies that have the same prefix and I can't differentiate between them. But they could fix that without needing last name only. It's just like if they put a last name only thing in the game, then they never have to worry about fixing that problem again because I can just do it by myself every time. Whereas if they don't, then every single time they make a new dungeon, there's a good chance that that problem is going to exist, and we're just going to have to hope it gets fixed, early or before the season.
Yeah, I mentioned this maybe like a year ago or so. Maybe it was like back in Dragonflight. But I swear they should just have like a simplified mode and an immersion mode. Immersion mode would just have like the full names and it would just be like all the normal cast names and stuff. And they should have like a simplified mode where it's just like, all right, this mob is called Caster. This mob is called...
So they're never going to do Caster, like Caster, frontal guy, any of those things. But like...
Why not?
I just want their... Like, I'm happy to have their flavorful names. It's just like... The prefix that's all the same between all the enemies is the part that I have the problem with.
Yeah, well, it would just be like simplified mode. Yeah. Well, but I want it for cast bars too, because like, I want it for like... I don't want to see... like Dark Void or whatever. I want to see it just say Bolt, or it'll just say Cleave, or it'll say Dodge.
Yeah, they've like explicitly said that they do not want to do descriptive.
I know they don't want to do that as an add-on, but like I want to say like I want that as an in-game feature.
No, it's not a case of like we don't
option.
want an add-on to provide this. It's like we do not want things to say like frontal or cleave or be like descriptive on that. We want you to learn what the abilities do and not like just read what they do and then react to,
which I feel like is just stupid though. It's like it's not very interesting gameplay loop. It's like, okay, you figure it out once. All right, now you just call it frontal forever. It's like the same with like raid bosses, right? It's like, okay, reverse gravity. Like nobody ever really knew what the hell it was called. We just called it the thing where you get into the back. It's like once you figured out the name of it, it's just, oh, all right, well, let's just call it by the mechanic name or call it by what it does rather than mechanic name.
Yeah, I do. Like, I definitely understand why they'd want to do that, right? Like, they want, the game to have cool sounding abilities and they want you to learn what the cool sounding abilities do. It definitely is going to, one of the other stated goals they've talked about, though, is like reducing some of the learning curve and stuff. And that does move it in the opposite direction, right? Where like, if you, especially this lines up with the thing we were talking about as well, where they're moving away from casts and just having more sword tosses that are not cast and just kill you. And if we also don't have a details death log, the gap between
Yeah, now we just died to random shit.
Yeah,
We don't
just
even know what it
figuring
is.
out like what you died to and what is lethal in this dungeon and what's important and why it's important is going to get harder. So like the relative value of being somebody like you or me that goes through all the casts in a dungeon and like understands exactly what all the mobs do and does the dungeon 50 times more than somebody else, like that actually does help us relative to them, which I think is the opposite of what they want to do. I would think so. Like I think that they want to make it so that it's less unapproachable and more easy to
Oh,
zone in.
100%. Dude,
But
I'm
it definitely does the
experiencing
opposite
what
of that, doing it this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm experiencing what those new players are experiencing right now. Because like I'm experiencing these dungeons for the first time. I don't know what each individual mob do. I'm pulling them, and then we're just randomly getting dots. We're randomly dying,
Yeah.
and I don't know like which mob is causing that. It's like,
But by the
did I
time
pull the
Midnight's
wrong
come
mob?
out, you're gonna have done this dungeon 50 times on beta, and then
Yeah,
you're gonna do
yeah.
it 400 times in the first few weeks, and
Yeah,
you're gonna
exactly.
know.
But I mean, like I see it from both sides, so like
Yeah.
I know exactly what it's like to be that person that's just seeing these dungeons for the first time, and also the person that has already learned and mastered these dungeons. It's like it just kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of stupid.
Yeah, I think it's a tough balance to strike. It's like, where should the mastery come in these dungeons, and like how does a good player show that they're good? And in a game like WoW, a
It should
large
definitely be
part of it's
execution.
always going to be knowledge, but I think that moving more in the direction of just like having an encyclopedic knowledge of the dungeons being important is not good. I think you can look at a change like making it so that when your graveyard updates, you actually can see it on the map, right? Like that's an example of a move in the opposite direction where you no longer need to memorize which bosses update your graveyard and where the release point is. And like that was great. That's a huge good change towards making dungeons less inaccessible and removing our ability to see what's killing us and then like look at our death log and all that stuff is a move in the opposite direction, and that sucks. But yeah, there's still time. There's still plenty of time. We've got, I guess it's going to be Thanksgiving and then Christmas and then the patch is coming out. So maybe
well, that's actually the bigger worry too, because there's so many holidays coming up. There's actually less time for them to work on it.
This is it's kind of a unique thing because they haven't released an expansion in like, the first quarter of a year since someone brought it up. It was like Burning Crusade, but like, I mean, that's just like a different fucking universe,
that was one of the best expansions of all time. So
true.
Yeah. Holy shit, TBC was the goat, man.
It's also we've been able to elude this expansion's about to come out, but there's like two major holiday breaks between now and then, and that just hasn't been a thing for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say they need to add the fucking fellowship interrupt nameplate. That shit is way too goated.
That's where like you set focus and it shows your group that you've set focus on it, right?
Yeah, it shows your little icon next to it.
It's good, but am I crazy for thinking that like if Blizzard is having this conversation, they're almost immediately going to, we don't want to require our design isn't that we want casual players to have to learn how to bind and set a like focus thing as like a default in the game? Because like I look at that as, for us, it's so goated. It's the most goated thing because we've already been doing it, but like WoW dungeons are already pretty hard and like they're worried about coggy load on these people and they're like removing a lot of tools, and now they're like, okay, by the way, now you have to do this. You already play Fellowship. If you're queuing Fellowship and like the non-high
people are
ranks,
just idiots and they don't use it.
Yeah, dude, the WoW community, there's so many people would not. And by doing that, by having this in the game, you're kind of saying, okay, we're going to be making dungeons assuming you're using this. And I think they know that the majority of their players will not.
So that's 100 something Blizzard would think, but I also think the opposite of where, like, as more people use this, players will adapt. Players are really good at adapting, and they will see like, oh, like I should be doing this. Like it'll just become rampant. It's kind of like the ping, right? Like the ping when it first came out. WoW players don't know how to use pings unless you come from like playing League of Legends or like FPS games and shit. But people have gotten better at using pings. People have gotten better at using markers. People have gotten much better at following metas and stuff. Like metagaming is at an all-time high, and I think it's just one of those things where it'll actually improve players, where it'll nudge them in the direction of using focus macros. And like I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to the podcast right now probably don't use focus macros. In fact, it's actually kind of astonishing. I feel like on my stream too, you would expect at least 90% of the players to use focus macros. But no, there are actually a lot of players out there that don't use focus macros. And I understand it too, because I used to not use it when I played Boomkin way back in the days. And it made sense because I just had too many fucking keybinds. It's like, you're telling me to add another keybind and have to use another focus macro, like that's just too many. But like with them trimming down the game a bit and players adapting to new systems, I think it's just like only a positive.
Yeah, I do think that it's a big hill to climb to like get a lot of people to be using focus macros, because like I don't know, even among our like circle of people that are watching, M plus streams or whatever, there still is such a low buy-in. And then you imagine like going to the people that aren't doing that, the buy-in's going to be even lower. I think if Blizzard wanted to do like a focus kick style system, they would have to basically radically rethink how that works, and like you'd have to like integrate it into the rotation, right? Where it's like, oh, this ability also sets your focus effectively, right? And then this ability interrupts the last mob you use that other ability on, and something like that. And like then it could also combine with how it goes on your nameplate. But I think short of that, it's just like such a big ask to get people to like use the current focus system.
Yeah,
like
I
widespread.
also think you could meet halfway and say you don't have to design the game fundamentally knowing that you have to be using this tool. You could just add it on top of what's already available, and you could choose to use it whether you're not. Because like, I mean, at a high level, I mean, it is like so crazy insanely good.
Yeah, I see it the same as the ping system. Like it's so insanely good. Not everyone uses it, but
yeah, it's pretty similar.
So good.
Yeah, it does remind me of that for sure, where it's like, but again, it's something where it's like, it's so hard to imagine an implementation that they could do that would actually, not cause some social problems of some kind or other.
Oh, definitely would. It would definitely call out all the players that aren't interrupting properly. But I mean, maybe that's for the better too, because people are always bitch about like, oh well, my group never interrupts. Well, now they can see exactly who is not setting their focus.
It's also like counterpoint. People who don't do it and don't want to do it and are already not wanting to do dungeons because they don't want to get like flamed for not knowing what they're doing. Now is like, oh wait, you're not fucking focus kicking? Get out of my fucking group, whatever, right? So like I think they're also cognizant of that. I think that's actually one of the examples. I love that mechanic. I think that's one of the examples of something you can do in a brand new game and might be really difficult putting into a game that people have like had a construct of how you play it for a really long time. And also you have an extremely casual player base. And I think the like percentage of Fellowship players that are casuals is like monumentally smaller than WoW. I think just by default, it's an infinitely scaling, pushing Mythic Plus game.
Yeah, I think this is one of those questions where Blizzard will instantly instead answer like, no, we're just going to lower the amount of kicks in the dungeons, which, okay, as long as you actually do that, right? We saw that it was not initially that way in beta.
Kick gameplay is just kind of dog shit.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any other beta or midnight stuff you guys would like to cover? I feel like we've gone through most of the items on my list.
How do classes feel, I guess, is a big one. Have you guys heard anything from like Maxier players or
Dratnos? I will say a few things. So I will just say this is also kind of in regards to add-ons, but I think last Thursday and Wednesday's raid testing was a raid testing day I'll never forget, because it's just like you're zoning into raid testing and all of your players are like playing with this new UI for the first time, and there were so many issues with it that it was just so funny, just in general. I want to say the general vibe is that most people feel like their shit is exactly the same. Like most specs in the game it's like kind of the same class. And then there are a few specs that are monumentally different. Like I know Fired Up, for example, was like sitting there after testing, and like a few of us were just like fucking around, like 6 or 7 of us. And Fired Up's just like, dude, literally all of the skill. And he is not like a hyperbolic, like crazy take machine. He's like, dude, literally, I feel like all the skill expression in this class is gone. Like this was the most like skill expressive class, and all three, not even one, all 3 specs are significantly easier to the point where it would be hard to differentiate yourself as a player on this class. And he 100% meant it. He like, and I think Hopeful's like the opposite of him, where like basically beta came out and he's like, there's gonna be no skill difference on mage anymore. And I'm just like, okay, it's kind of quick to say that. But like took some time, played it, and basically had the same take, and those two are very different in how they give their takes and how quickly they do it. And that made me realize that like if you're a mage player that enjoys the mastery of that class, you are absolutely going to be disappointed. But at the same time, it's also going to be more appealing to players that didn't want to go through that. So, as far as why Blizzard did it, I'm not sure, but I think at least mages. I mean, the famous ones we've heard are like Demo Lock, Resto Shaman, right, stuff like that. But mages got hit really hard.
Yeah, that lines up with my guild as well. The mages, doom and crazy style. It's tough because again, like there are people that I know will always complain, and so I don't want to like read too much into their complaints. Like our Windwalker player is, complaining, but he always complains, so I don't know if that means anything. Yeah, some of the specs, I don't know. The tank specs, I'd say, by and large, look fine to me. Yeah, Resto Shaman. Even like Holy Paladin.
What about the healers? What have the healers been saying in terms of like the gameplay? Has there been
my healers were just complaining about the raid frames.
Yeah,
like it's hard. It's hard to get anything about the gameplay because they're just so the nameplates for healers are dire.
Yeah, mine are. I think it is pretty spec by spec. Like it seems like Mistweaver, Holy Paladin, Resto Shamans are a little bit more sad than the others.
They all don't do any damage anymore. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Like it seems like
healer damage was all-time low.
Very specifically targeted to be doing no damage, which, we've had this covered. There's a certain bunch of healers that feel a certain way about that on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again is
have they slowed down healing at all? Is that like something you guys have thought about?
No.
I don't have a good read on
Same.
it. Like it's so hard to make that comparison with the testing that we've got right now.
Yeah,
I think that's a healer guest episode angle.
Yeah, we should flame a healer guest for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was gonna say about the mage thing, like not to be dismissive of their concerns, but at the same time, mage outside of their rotation has an extreme amount of mastery, like your movement, your defensive usage.
Not really anymore though. Like all of their little skill expressive defensives are gone now. It's
well, no, I mean that's not entirely true. Like they still have a lot of it. It's like they no longer have DR on their invis and stuff, but like you're still gonna want to use invis to like invis certain damage mechanics, and
that typically doesn't work.
Your altar is still a thing, right? Like altar is still one of the biggest defensives that like you know how to use it properly or you don't, and blink is like an extremely different mobility skill that is like very important to your rotation, because like I know a lot of people who have tried to pick up mage and they're just not very good at utilizing all these tools. Like not the rotation itself, like sure, like rotation, you might have like Jangbi pick it up and stuff, but I mean like the mage kit has always been one of the biggest differentiating factors for a mage main and just like a bottom reroller.
I mean, you will still see like a good mage will still look good on that, but if you enjoyed the arcane or fire rotations,
right, yeah,
like
those
are now
a big problem.
Like kindergarten versions of the college rotation or whatever that those had. Frost is at least like new. It's a new swing at it. So if you liked the old Frost, it's gone, but at least you're not going to have to see its desecrated corpse every time you log in, and you instead just have something new that might be fun as well. But yeah, I think that mage falls to me in the same category as like Resto Shaman, where it's like they need some juice to be re-imported into the rotation, right? Like something skill expressive has to come back here, because you're right, there still will be close to infinite skill expression in a real world WoW situation, but like one of the things that makes WoW fun is that in addition to doing that, you're also trying to optimize your damage. And I think that if you are a pretty good or better mage player, that is not going to be something that you'll have any fun with in Midnight with these versions, especially for Fire and Arcane from my read of it. That's again, Frost at least seems like you might have some fun because that has a pretty cool new resource building thing that is at least new.
Yeah, JB actually had a really interesting take on this whole situation of classes being pruned a bit. Because like he's normally mega fucking doomer, and he's like been super down about the whole add-on situation and like a lot of the stuff that's been happening on Midnight. But he's actually been like kind of positive on the pruning changes and saying how a lot of the nuances that required you to have some like I don't know, like there are a lot of there are good nuances and there are bad nuances, and WoW generally had a lot of the bad nuances where you had to be on like the class Discord. You need to know the exact interactions between like certain things to make the class optimize by like 5% or
Definitely
whatever.
true.
And yeah,
Like you think
and
about like arcane barrage conditions, for instance, and it's like, what the fuck is this?
right, or you need to know like, oh, you need to like Havoc Demon Hunter has this really weird nuance where you need to make sure you do your Fury of the Eldraki combo a second after your backflip. Otherwise, you're losing a lot of initiative damage or whatever. It's just like a lot of like really random small things that have made gameplay not feel so good, especially if you're somebody who is re-rolling to class. But obviously, if you're like someone who's like really into your class and you want to know like every single little bit of it, some of that is going away. But I've noticed that in particular when playing tank on beta. When I'm playing tank, I'm like doing the same shit, right? Like I'm at a high level, I'm just kind of pressing the same buttons. Nothing's really changing, but I'm not as punished as heavily for not playing my rotation perfectly. Like Demon Hunter, for example, you're still hitting the same shit. You're still fracturing, soul cleaving. You have Spirit Bomb now too, which is kind of cool. But if you're not like keeping good uptime on your frailty, if you're not keeping good uptime on your Painbringer, like just like consuming a lot of souls, you were so fucked before. Like if you didn't know what your passive tankiness looked like at any moment, you could have been so dead. But like now they kind of removed a lot of that, and you're still playing the game exactly the same. It's just you lost a lot of that interaction.
VDH, I think, was a huge example of like understanding when you were tanky and when you were squishy as a VDH was very counterintuitive for most players.
Right.
I think Prot Warrior, another example is Prot Warrior. Do you guys know the like violent outburst thing on Prot Warrior where when you get enough
you don't want to make
rage,
the mistake of
if you spend it on revenge instead of or thunderclap instead of shield slam, you're like griefed your damage, especially if you weren't playing Thane, you griefed your damage crazy style. And they have gone in and like pruned that out. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think there's a lot of good stuff that they are pruning out. It just seems like Mage has gone a little too far, Resto Shaman's gone way too far, and then they pruned it back, or they gave it back a little bit, but it's still a little too far. Like they're basically they're moving in a good direction for most of these specs, in my opinion. It's just some have overshot the mark, and hopefully they'll be able to give back a little bit of something. I will say, dude, by the way, JB, if you ever agree with JB on a topic and you know he's going to tweet about it, you're just like, hell yeah, he's going to have some like banger, insightful, slicing, painful tweets for the opposition to read. But then whenever you disagree with him, you're like, fuck, dude, he's gonna say something that's gonna be like so hard to disprove. Yeah, great member to have on Twitter. All right, let's do our Patreon question. Let's move on there. This one comes from Midas, and it says, Aug Evoker was meta for a year and received all the vitriol and hate, but some kind of mage has been in the meta since the introduction of M+. What propaganda machine keeps the community from hating mages like we do laser chickens?
That's
and
what
Augies?
I've been saying, man. That's so fucking true, man. Why are we hating on laser chickens and Augs, man? I'm a laser chicken.
I think mages and warlocks get their share of hate as well.
Not quite near as much.
So I actually think they. So basically, every class that's been like a staple in the Mythic Plus meta for a long enough time just starts stacking more and more hate from the people that aren't in the comp, and they're like, "Why is this thing always good?" And they're right. The thing is, Aug had that as well and had like a legendary run, but it happened way faster. And I think it was a combination of like the anti-support people, what it did to details meters and raids. And it was just like all of it was like, I don't like any of this. And also their meta. So the hate was like super amplified. But I do think that most every class that was just a staple does get that hate. But I think there's also an element to mages where people are used to it. It's kind of just like they've just simply accepted that mages are great, and that's just kind of always going to be the case, maybe.
Yeah, they're just the main characters since the beginning of WoW, so like you can't fault the main character for their shortcomings.
And Moonkins just do that stupid fucking the little fucking wave in their hands thing. It just looked dumb as hell. And also there's just randomly, like proportionally, a lot more Moonkin content creators than other classes, and I feel like they, like especially Tettles, just like I think Tettles does direct hate towards the Moonkins sometimes. I don't know why. He just like rubs people the wrong way, and he's a Moonkin and people are just like fucking Moonkins, but they're just like picturing Tettles in their head. There's also like the Venthyr Moonkin thing. They were just like too good for one tier. I think it like really did. Don't you guys feel like the Moonkin hate fucking took a crazy like accelerator during that raid? It felt.
Yeah, definitely. That was Sanctum, right? Where it was like,
Yeah.
that shit was so OP, and it was like it was the kind of OP where nobody else even could compete at their niche, right? Like they were just 10 times better than anybody else when they were doing their fucking cooldown. So yeah, I think that you've landed on a lot of things there. I think I personally do put most of the blame on titles as well.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how that happens. Like, I remember reading this one Twitch comment I had. It's like, I think, I don't know if I was reacting to a Tettles video or if I was just like watching MDI or whatever, but the guy was like, how's Tettles here still? I feel like I can't avoid Tettles no matter where I go. Like, if I'm going to watch the Race of the World first, Tettles is there. If I'm watching the MDI, Tettles is there. If I'm watching a video, Tettles is there. If I'm like watching a podcast, Tettles is there. If I'm reacting to, or if I'm watching someone react to something, Tettles is there. Like, you just can't avoid him. He's just an omnipresence in the WoW community. And he's got a pretty big sway. Like, he did convince all the Boomkins to go Kyrian that one time, which was crazy.
Dude, yeah, it's tough because, like, it's one of those things where there's like 99% of people are trolling in good fun, but then there's also like 1% of people that are like randomly take it way too far and kind of ruin the fun, of it. So don't be any of those 1%, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think a large part of a class's perception comes from some like historical part. Like, I think Ret Paladins, for example, will forever have that reputation of being crybabies because of the whole Discord shutting down situation.
Yeah. Yeah, like these little events like break through, and then they're just like the thing about that spec, right? Is that, oh yeah, Ret Pally, that's the spec that shut down their Discord. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. We've gotten through pretty much everything that we wanted to. How was the
MDI
watch party, by the way? Yeah. So you guys were up bright and early last couple of days watching the MDI. Liquid 8 seconds from victory. Very, I imagine, tragic, but also, this is a team's first season together, so
I thought they did really well. I was really proud of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to watch, by the way. I don't know. I mean, some MDIs, I'll always make the argument for MDI to be fun to watch, but seasons like this make it easy because it's like, yeah, this was just a banger finals.
Yeah, Val is probably the craziest final in. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say craziest, but like the most down to the final hour of the tournament.
Yeah, like Liquid were in the overtime time improvement key, and then they did improve their time, but it was by 20 seconds when they needed 30, and like, that is a crazy level of closeness.
Yeah, there was almost an even better ending, which is that Liquid would have timed that key by like a few seconds to win, and then like missed count is now in their halls and could retake it within one dungeon. Like that was it. And okay, yes, we watched the MDI. It turned out really cool. Liquid almost won. Miscount deserved to win. They did really, really well. They've been like trying to win for many years. Have been a really strong team. And I think just overall, like, I think fair to say, just looked the best over the weekend. Like, if they had timed all their keys, they were faster than everyone. Also, the one dungeon that wasn't there was a 24 Ecodome. And as far as I could tell, they're the only team that actually had one of those in practice. So they were actually like definitely deserved to win. However, we did talk about some tiebreak rules at the end of the day that we found to be very entertaining. And I need you to clarify these. So we heard that according to the rulebook, Miras was reading it, if two teams have the exact same time, what happens? And I think these go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it's a coin flip. It's they needed something to go there. Like, so realistically, to have the exact same time is almost impossible because we count down to the millisecond. But yeah, if somehow you add up the hundreds of thousands of milliseconds for both teams and it's the exact same number, it is a coin flip.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. Like, that's to imagine. So imagine the third crazy ending. They end up having the same time, Which do you guys do milliseconds after
Yeah.
they have the same seconds?
It's tracked
Yeah,
down
yeah.
down to the millisecond. So
to the 100th or the 10th?
That's lame.
it's millisecond is a thousandth of a second.
Oh,
so,
sorry. So yeah, literal millisecond. Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, yeah. Then there's no way
It's
it would end
pretty
in 5.
hard. I mean, they came within 8,000 milliseconds of each other. So,
It should come down to the second.
Why? So you
want
can
to do
see
a
a
coin
coin
flip more
flip?
often?
Yeah, I want to see that. That would be awesome.
Why don't we just do a coin flip if it's within 10 seconds? That could be more exciting. Get more coin
Okay,
flips in
okay,
here.
I'd be down for that too.
Yeah.
Or
that's
what
good.
if like they get put into a sudden death and they have to like the first one to finish a 24 gambit would win the tournament,
Yeah,
and obviously the faster time takes it.
I do think there's some cool ideas in that space for how you do, tiebreakers between the teams. Yeah, it's
Yeah, sudden death is always the way to go. It's always the most exciting.
I'd be down. I'd be down for like, imagine if it's like every team that's within 2 minutes of each other gets to go to a sudden death run, but you're spotted the amount of time that you're ahead by, right? So if you're a minute and a half ahead, you get an extra minute and a half bonus on your sudden death timer, right? But if you're only 10 seconds ahead, you only get 10 seconds bonus on your time in the sudden death. Could be fun.
But yeah, I mean, this was also the first tournament where Echo, aka Holy Method, didn't come at least in top 2. Like they've lost some tournaments before, but they were always at least a close second, which I mean is kind of crazy. That means like the future, there's a whole lot more teams that can potentially compete and win. Although that a large part of it, I believe, is Holy Method underperforming. Now, I don't know if they feel that way, or I don't know like if that's actually what happened. But it seemed that way. It seemed like they underperformed compared to usual, just from a viewer spectator perspective.
Yeah, mandatory too.
Yeah, mandatory for sure.
Yeah, I would not be confident. Like between those 4 teams, Liquid, Holy Method, mandatory, Miscount, if they stick together next season, I think it's really anybody's game between those teams. They're all so good, and yeah, there were like Miscount and Holy Method underperformed by a little bit, but even still, they were really, really close in the scheme of things. The difference between first and fourth this MDI was closer than first and second in a lot of seasons. So it's hype. And also like the next seasons are going to lead into BlizzCon too. So there's even more incentive. I think I expect these teams will stick together and like the MDI will continue to have some close, exciting finishes.
Yeah, I mean, BlizzCon would be in like season 2, right?
I don't know for sure
Not
what
season
the timing would be, but yeah, potentially, depending on when all the releases are and stuff.
Dude, are you guys going to BlizzCon?
I mean, we live in the same state as BlizzCon, so it'd be hard to dodge.
I haven't bought a ticket yet. I'm holding out for getting some kind of media pass.
I imagine, yeah, that you wouldn't have trouble getting one of those.
You'd be surprised. Last time it was like really easy. But I don't know. I've tried to get it in the past, and they told me to fuck off. So that's possible they could do that. They could always tighten their restrictions.
They actually offered me to go last time too. I was like, maybe I'll consider it.
Dude, you should do your grand reveal.
You'd be hype.
Do they pay for your flight too, or is it just the ticket or whatever?
It's a good question. I don't think they pay for your flight, but
yeah, last time I was there, I was casting the like BlizzCon Guild Clash thing, but they didn't like pay for anything. They just gave me like a chunk of money for doing that, and it's like, yeah, book your flight out of this and everything. So, kind of for that one, but I think it depends. I think if you're just like going as media or something like that as press, probably the most you'd get would be a free pass potentially, and maybe one for your film crew or something like that but I think it probably depends, right? Like if you're sufficiently clouded, I bet you could get almost anything.
Yeah,
that is true. Like Max.
Yeah, like Max, exactly, right? You would probably get them to like pay him and fly him and stuff, even though he's in the same city, right?
That did not happen last time. They did. I
bet you could get them to like fly you from like a private airport up where you are down to Santa Ana or whatever.
They contracted security for me last time, which was something
I remember
cool.
That was like TwitchCon, right? Or was that BlizzCon?
No, that was at BlizzCon.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because I asked if I could bring my own, and they were like, "You should use ours." And I was like, "All right."
Wait, that sounds
And I
just
did.
like TwitchCon. What the hell?
Yeah, dude, my guys were fucking beasts. Shout out Frank and Osman, absolute goats.
Frank, actually the same Frank that does our editing.
Yes.
Yeah, Moonlight's is a security guy. All right. Now officially, I think we're done with all the things for real. So I think that's going to be it for the poddy. Poddy. Goodbye, everybody.
Poddy goodbye.
Adios.
Poddy midnight.